And Andres is the co-founder of Asia Mind Dynamics. That's the company that pioneered in certified NLP training in Malaysia. Welcome to our show, Andres. And I'd like you to do the honor by introducing yourself in more details.
First of all, thank you, Alban, for having me here. So while I'm from Germany originally, I arrived in Malaysia way back in 1993. Fall in love with the country, with the food, with the people, with my wife ultimately as well, and decided to stay. Moved over after Malaysia, working with the United Nations, moved over to Indonesia for 3 years. After Indonesia collapsed in the economic crisis, moved to Singapore and came back to Malaysia in 2000. Always loved change. However, when I was working in an HR consulting company, people started to talk to me about change is hard to achieve. And I started to believe that as well, until I came across this beautiful tool called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And through NLP, I realized it's possible to help people change behaviors fast and create change that lasts. And from that point onwards, I never stopped learning, became a certified NLP trainer, hypnotherapy trainer, NLP coach trainer, as well as something that we are going to talk about, a certified master trainer of the language and behavior profile, words that change minds. So thank you for being here, having invited me, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Podcast.
Thank you so much for your introduction, Andreas. Thank you. It's a great honor to have you here always, and it's also such a great pleasure to see you after so many years. I think it's about 3 years since we last met.
At least 3 years, but time flies, right?
Correct, that's right. So today we're going to be talking about something very interesting, which is interviewing candidates to hire for your company or your organization or your business.
Right.
All right. So when it comes to interviewing candidates or selecting candidates, we have to go through the process, the selection process, the shortlisting process. And usually what happens throughout this process is that, we meet a lot of candidates who come in for the interviews, and selecting the right, or rather, should I say, the ideal candidate is very vital, because it will these candidates that are going to come in as employees are going to either build or break your organization. So, in our experience, I'm pretty sure you have also interviewed candidates for your business to hire, or even in your previous career, your previous companies, right? So we've all interviewed the so-called smooth talkers, right? These are the candidates who tells us fantastic stories about themselves, but usually they turn out to be very poor performers, when it comes to real life situations. So when you hire them, eventually they end up being not as what they portrayed themselves during the interview. So is there a way to identify if they are genuinely high performing or just overselling themselves during an interview?
It's a cool question. It's $1 million question, and really $1 million, because it's very expensive for companies to hire the wrong person, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So the problem we do have sometimes is that we are listening to content and not structure. So let me explain what that means, what I mean by this, because that's $1 million worthwhile understanding. Let me introduce you to the language and behavior profile a little bit more, lab profile, or words that change minds.
Okay.
It has been popularized by my own Sifu, Shelley Rose Gervais, and I'm one of 17 global master trainers. Now, the lab profile is allowing me to decode, and it's heavy words right now, decode below conscious filters someone uses to process information. Now, what do I mean by this? So let me explain this in more detail, okay? Many people believe it's easy to spot talents, but we are listening to what a person says in an interview. We are reading their resume. We are listening to their rehearsed responses, and they have practiced it so in role play. So they are really, really good.
Correct.
The lab profile is different because it allows you to listen beyond the words, the structural DNA of somebody. So to clarify it a little bit, it's not like DSISC or MBTI, which allows us to understand a person's characteristics. Lab profile is really, and that's mostly amazing to people, is contextual. That means you are asking that person a certain question. And the question can be a very, very normal question we ask in the normal day-to-day life. However, they are filtering out information, and whatever they're saying when they're answering the question, you know what they are focusing on at that point of time, and allows you to understand fit with an organization. For example, you understand, again, valuable, how long will somebody stay with an organization? Okay. Are they motivated or demotivated by problems or goals? Are they very creative, innovative, maybe sometimes breaking the rules? Or do they like to follow rules one by one by one? Are they team players or team leaders? All of those allows us to get identified when we are using the lab profile questions. Okay. And any answer a person says is really the below conscious filter. So we are listening to the words somebody says, and we can predict how that person will behave in the future in a similar conversation. So yes, smooth talkers. The problem with the smooth talkers is they are very general in their descriptions. They tell you great stories, but they don't tell you the specifics, which are different patterns running. So they tell you about the project, they tell you about the team, they tell you about the outcomes. But the moment you would ask for more specifics, they're struggling. Somebody who's really a high performer will be able to answer a question in a very detailed manner. Like what happened, who was involved, what was the outcome, what was the challenges they face, and whatever questions you ask them, they will be able to answer that question. And as they answer the question, you identify more of their language patterns coming through their answer.
Right. The language and the behavior have a correlation. They are very much interrelated. So by just listening to the choice of words and the verbal choices that these candidates make, you'll be able to make up their behaviors just based on language.
Based on language. So to decode your own question right now or earlier of how you describe the hiring process, I do know you were not looking for options, possibilities, alternatives. You describe the question. So first we're hiring somebody, we are describing the resume, then we're hiring somebody, then we are getting them into a job, and then whoops, the misfit is happening and the chaos is happening. So in your mind, there was a clear procedure running, which you also showed in your body language. Namely, when you moved your hands in this kind of manner, that was a structural way forward describing it. So it's just one little thing when Alvin was asking me that question that I could decode his thought process, which of course he wasn't aware of, that he was thinking in procedures, in structures. He didn't say like, hey, we are hiring a person, for example, you could have said that, and we don't know if that person should be flexible or goal-focused or all over the place or good in planning or team-oriented, which would have been options. And as you see my hands moving here as well. So you know already how I described an options person. So at that point of time, because I'm trained, I do know how to change my language, because it would also help me then to motivate you, Alvin. I don't give you the options when I would describe a job to you. I would give it to you, describe the job to you in step-by-step procedure. In this sense, then triggering your below conscious motivation, and you would know exactly what needs to happen in order to get the job done. Does it fit somehow?
Okay, let's talk about a scenario. It may be a little confusing for the audience, because for me, I lost you a little bit. Let's give specific examples so that we can actually formulate whatever that you're saying. So recently, early this year, I hired a sales candidate, or rather a sales staff. During the interview, this guy seemed to have all the green flags, right? And he seemed to communicate well. He seemed to be able to answer all my questions in terms of how do you generate your leads? And he's got all these strategies. And he says, it's going to be a walk in a park, generating leads. I said, you're from a different industry. You're not from this training or consulting industry. You're from an engineering industry. You used to do sales there. You've got sales experience, but not similar industry experience. And he was able to talk his way through. He says, you know what? At the end of the day, the fundamentals of sales remains the same. So somehow or other, he convinced me that he's the right fit for the job. And I gave it a shot and I hired him. But turns out that he absolutely oversold himself. He came in, he was not able to generate any leads. He was not able to set any appointments. He failed miserably as a sales executive in my organization. Now, what do you think I did wrong over there? Or what should I have done? Or what are the red flags that I should have looked out for?
One thing is a sales job requires procedural thinking.
Okay.
That means basically sales is procedure, right?
All right.
So you are identifying the client, you're
Correct.
calling the client, you're
Yes.
following up with the client, you're writing a proposal.
The whole cycle.
You're-
Yep.
The whole cycle, but it's not a cycle, it's a procedure the person follows.
Absolutely.
That's one thing. If that person is on options, thinking, creativity, innovative, a person, for example, who is driving on options in sale, they're thinking by themselves, hey, I've done the same job now 3, 4, 5 times. Maybe I break the rules. Maybe I need to change something. Maybe let's do a different approach and various different styles of approaches, and they're changing something that worked very well before, which might set them back because, hey, early on the procedures worked, but a procedure is very boring to a person who is very much on options driven, looking for alternatives.
But don't you feel that every salespeople require a certain level of creativity, imagination, and innovation, especially when it comes to sales? Taking innovative options or the innovative path can actually give them an added advantage, setting them out from the competitors.
That's definitely true as well. It's context specific. Remember, in a context you can change. When I were to ask you, for example, driving your car.
All right.
Do you drive your car in a different manner when you are driving it alone compared to when you're driving with your family?
Oh, yes.
That's a different context.
Correct.
So you're running
when
a different
when I'm
motor
alone,
car.
I will speed. But when I'm with my family,
Don't say that on camera.
with my wife around, there's no way that can happen.
Exactly.
But,
So you are
All right.
automatically having a different context.
Okay.
Let me ask you another question. When you go to work in the morning time to meet a client, for example, and your darling wife is coming to you and says like, "Wow, darling, you wear your coat, you look really good, you have a wonderful tie," but your darling comes to you and says like, "Sayang, I think the tie you are wearing really doesn't look good on you."
Okay.
Would you change the tie? Or would you say like, "Hey, I love the tie, it's my luck bringer, I don't want to change the tie"?
To begin with, I don't think people wear tie these days anymore.
Let's assume now, okay?
All right. So assuming if I were to put on a tie and if an opinion comes up to me, a wife comes up to me and gives me an opinion as such, I would actually may consider it, depending on how she's justifying it. So yeah.
So you have your own ideas of how you would look like. What are your best preferred clothes?
Correct.
You do know by yourself. You take the information in. You evaluate within yourself if it's good information, and if it's fitting your worldview, you allow it to happen.
Correct.
You would change. If it
Yes.
doesn't fit with your worldview,
I would
you
ignore
would
it.
push back.
Yes.
Compared to somebody else who would take a feedback as an instruction in a work, for example. Some people look for instructions, look for feedback, and they freak out if there's no feedback.
Correct.
And it's loneliness, and they don't know what to do. They don't know if they're on the right track. So if you were to change your tie or your clothes the moment your wife is saying something, you would be external to herself, to your wife. But you might not be external to a salesperson who is, when you're buying, shopping in a retail outlet and tells you, "Hey, boss, this clothes doesn't look very good on you," you might push back and say like, or you might listen to that person and you would be external to that person.
Yes.
Or you might push back and say like, "Who are you to tell me that?"
Correct.
You might
You're
be
just trying to make a
internal
quick
again.
sales. Yeah.
Exactly.
Correct.
So a salesperson, when you right now said like, okay, you were listening to what I was saying, and inside your mind you were also processing, is what I'm saying to you making sense to you and to your audience? So you automatically build up your inner filter and push back a little bit to my response and wanted to have more understanding regarding explanation, which is good for the audience, but it again told me exactly how you're thinking at that point of time. Through the lab profile, I can decode on a moment by moment basis how you operate. Let's go back to the salesperson.
Okay.
The salesperson, of course, when he is talking to a client,
All right.
he needs to be able to understand the client's feeling, for example,
Correct.
need to be perceptive to possibly a client's expectations, understanding, probing question, the client's pain. He needs to go back and write a proposal step by step, but he needs to have the ability to be also flexible to talk to different people. In a different context, it doesn't mean that we are boxed in. We are not boxing in people. But the overall big frame structure in sales is procedure, one by one by one. And in between, of course, if I'm talking to one person, I'm talking to the next person, I might go option and be flexible about understanding what the client says.
Right.
Now, a salesperson, for example, can't be too external listening, for example, to all the feedback. If you don't like what your salesperson does, because let's say he negotiated a deal with a client but gave a huge discount because he's external to the client and listen to the client's feedback and he's happy, hey, I got the client, but I gave him a big feedback. Then he goes back to you and says, like, Alban, I gave the client a big feedback, a big discount. And you are not happy because the discount is too much. That poor soul is getting torn into different parts because he does not know. He's too external to you, too external to the client and torn apart. So he needs to have his own belief system. So do you understand what I'm trying to say? There is a procedure in sales, big frame. But in between, a salesperson nevertheless needs to be very much able to adjust to different situations, to different people. Contextually driven. The structure below, what do they filter out as information at that point of time? Below conscious awareness, something we're not aware of. What are we focusing on that point of time? And that is the important part for us at that point of time. I hope that makes sense to you and to your audience.
Thank you so much. Now let's talk about the Gen Zs right now. Let's decode Gen Z behavior, right? So speaking of the generational gap, many managers feel that Gen Z candidates are high maintenance regarding feedback and get bored too quickly and leave. Are these negative traits, eminent, or are we just misunderstanding what's going on inside this newer generation?
That's a common misunderstanding. The Gen Z is not broken. They're just operating differently.
Okay.
Look, think about the time they grew up in. Digital area. They have a deep imprint, external reference, high maintenance really means, maintenance means I need feedback from the people to know that I'm on the right track. Where did they grow up in? Listening to YouTube videos, to TikTok, everything goes fast.
Correct.
Automatically. The older generation is a little bit more slower moving, most likely. The digital generation likes, comments, viewership. They want to have that. External references. While the baby boomers or the other generations before them might be a little bit more, I do know what I need to do. I don't need to have the external feedback.
Correct.
I don't want to have validation.
Yeah.
The Gen Z, the newest trend on the block, the newest kid on the block, constant change, constant new trends, new fashion trends. Baby boomers, think about your own father.
Yes.
Not you are a baby boomer, but your father or my father.
Yes.
How long did they work in the same organization?
Correct.
Procedure, rules, slow moving, no change whatsoever. Tell me what I need to do, and then I'm waiting for the golden watch to come. Gen Z, they want it now, and that's the main challenge coming. So they are not bored. They just want to have difference. They want to have ability to do many things at the same time. While we don't understand that because we don't understand their thinking pattern ultimately. What is really, how do they process information? And what do they focus on a moment-by-moment basis? We are trying to input our model of the world, our thinking, our way of doing onto them, not realizing their way is different.
All right. Sticking with Gen Z, it often feels that they have a completely different belief system about work compared to the older generation, like whatever that you're mentioning, the Gen X, the baby boomers, right? So is their operating system actually different, or do we just need to change the way we communicate with them?
I think it's always about, first of all, I want to give a compliment to the baby boomers or those generations after the baby boomers, because we have undergone many changes, actually.
Absolutely.
We have been exposed to many things. We should be able to communicate even with the Gen Zers who are really new still in the working world, for example. However, the Gen Zers have a different value system, a different belief system. They're looking for purpose. They're looking for mental health becomes more and more important to them. They also want to have variety overall as well, compared to the older generations who wanted to have security, safety, coming from different environments, from economic crisis, holding on to something. Can you see the clash that happens?
Yes, the Gen Zs have never been in a economic crisis, so they don't know what life is exactly in that particular situation. So yeah, we have to consider that.
But you don't want to fight their belief. You
Correct.
want to be able to motivate them in a moment by moment basis, because every belief is triggering down to behavior. And when you gain language and behavior profile, when you understand how do they speak, and you understand what is going on in the mind, variety, difference, the words they're using. And if you are matching their preferences, you don't get a high maintenance guy, you adapt to their resourcefulness. Because you are telling them, here's a problem, fix it. Not problem, here's a goal, make it happen. They're going to find a hack very quickly because that's their operating system. They are very proactive, not like us.
Correct.
We just sometimes a little bit more reactive before we start to move our body, our mind, our behavior, our things to do.
Correct. All right. So now is the silver bullet section. So the silver bullet section is whereby if you have one advice or if you have one tip that you'd like to share with the audience in terms of hiring or in terms of recruiting, especially the Gen Zs or the current generation, right? What would that silver bullet or silver advice be?
Okay. Two things. Ask the question, how do you know you've done a good job? You watching that video right now, before you listen to the answer, write down by yourself now, take a minute or two, how would you know that you've done a good job? I'm not waiting for 2 minutes now, so I hope you stop the video, and now I'm telling you what's going on. If you look for feedback from external sources, be it from the tap on the shoulder, the cherry on the cake, the boss is giving you a compliment, the results are blooming, and it gives you the extra push to get things done, you need external feedback. If you hire a person like this, you don't want to have that person sitting alone in a room. They need to have the noise, they need to have the interaction with people. You don't want to have that kind of person be managed by somebody who's only having time once in a week, because they need the feedback. If you don't give them a feedback, it's like driving home without Waze. Try to drive home without Waze. Waze gives you a feedback. If you need that feedback and you don't get that feedback, you fall into a vacuum. You don't know what to do. Same with a person with an external reference. If they don't get the feedback, boom, they fall into a vacuum, don't know how to perform, don't know if they're on the right track. If they do know within themselves, what we also tested here with Alban just now, within themselves that they're doing a good job, they have their own belief system. They do know what's good for them. They don't need to have maintenance. You can give them a work to do, have them do it for a week and check in with them every now and then to ask how is it going, and they will tell you. You don't need to give them feedback. You give them suggestions on how to make things differently. So by asking that question, you know, for example, if these are kind of possibly team players, need feedback, or if they're good in running a project alone or sitting alone by themselves, they are self-maintainers, the internal people who don't need feedback. If they say like, I do know body language here, I do know within myself if I've done a good job. That's one thing going first.
Nice. All right. If our listeners could just have one specific question added to their script when they are interviewing their candidates to assess the future performance of their candidates, what powerful question would it be?
To assess their future performance. Now, I gave you the question, how do you know you've done a good job?
Correct. So basically it's, so if our listeners over here, they are conducting interviews, right?
Right.
And what would that one specific question that they could add to their interview script that could reveal the most about the candidate's future performance? What question would that be?
First of all, again, you need to know what kind of person do you need to look for. Are they, for example, it's all about motivation. How do you motivate a person? Are they looking for a problem-oriented person or a person who is goal-oriented? So the question to predict future performance, ask them, for example, where do you want to be in 5 years' time or in 3 years' time? And then again, listen to the words overall of how they are describing it, the story they are telling you ultimately, and then decode the question. Go back, listen to the whole interview. Every single question that Alvin asked me, I gave you a lot of indicators, words to listen out for, and then match the candidate's words to the future performance, to the job that you want to have them in, and see then if they fit. We had a company that we worked with, for example, to give you one example, we had a huge turnover of about 25% in about 6 months' time, people turning around in one department.
Wow.
Using Lab Profile, it's not replacing anything like a personal interview or replacing the RSC or MBTI, but using the Lab Profile to interview people or to select people before, to put it into a job ad, for example, you will get less candidates, but you get higher quality candidates already, because those who are not attracted by your ads, by the words you're putting in, will not even respond to it if they're risk averse or goal oriented, for example. And then they were interviewing them, every single candidate, and even their own team, according to Lab Profile, and boom, turnover shrunk down to about 9% in 6 months, which is much more healthy already. Imagine the cost saving a company could have just using a few questions along that line.
Nice. That's amazing.
So it's not possible to really predict a future performance overall. It's really about understanding what is motivating a person and design the job according to the profile you want to have, the best outcome of the person that you want to have, and then look for a candidate that matches that profile that you want to have in the organization.
Sounds amazing, and I guess lab profiling is really a tool that I think HR hirers especially can optimize in terms of reducing the attrition rate. So listeners out there, if you would like to know more, or if you'd like to attend a lab profiling training, and I think I attended the lab profiling training as well.
You think correctly.
It was many years ago, and yes, I think yes, I am a certified lab profiler, but it's just that I've lost touch. I did not keep in touch.
You should come back.
I should come back for a refresher. Now, for those of you who are interested to explore more about this, drop me an email, alban@businesswarriors.com, business spelled as BIZNEZ, WARRIORS.com. So drop me an email and I'll be happy to connect you with our subject matter expert for today. All right, so thank you once again, Mr. Indrius. Thank you for your time, and wishing you all the best for 2026. All right?
Oh yes, 2026 is coming. Thanks, all the best to the audience. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, sir.
And let's make it a roaring year.